So let's get back to that. You see it here on the video behind me. You're going to see it on social media for days to come. Violent clashes between anti-ICE protesters and police taking over the streets of some parts of Los Angeles, especially in that downtown LA corridor. This is what the scene looked like in different parts of LA County. You see the fires there. You see plumes of smoke. This is in the middle of the street in some places, underneath street lamps, next to buildings in places. A lot of cars engulfed in flames, and a major headline getting the attention of the White House. We also saw this. You can see demonstrators throwing items, that's a street sign, down onto the CHP or the California Highway Patrol there at Alameda Street and Union Station. Those police vehicles destroyed by pelted rocks, electric scooters, street signs, and other projectiles right off of that overpass and down onto the streets. And then the situation grew to what a lot of people are calling a freeway face-off. National Guard troops, and there you see them with tear gas, or what's thought to be tear gas. They're toe-to-toe with protesters. Some of those protesters you see brought to the ground. They were hauled away in zip ties behind their backs. Soldiers also deployed what looks to be that tear gas and fired, even in some cases, non-lethal rounds towards some groups. A reporter even got hit in the leg by a rubber bullet. The troops arrived in that area on Sunday, and they did so ordered by President Donald Trump. He deployed 2,000 National Guard troops. So that raised the ire of some California officials, like the leader of California in government, Governor Gavin Newsom. Also, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. Both of them urged President Donald Trump to rescind that order. Listen.
No, my disappointment is I've been talking to the federal government for days. I was hoping to prevent this situation from happening. I was trying to encourage the administration that if they deployed the National Guard in Los Angeles, it would create a sense of chaos. It's the last thing our city needs. Our city is still trying to recover from the wildfires. And you just think about how so many people were impacted by that. And that's an example of where the administration was helpful. And to go from that situation to where we are now is just really tragic. And I think it's so unfortunate. It's the last thing Los Angeles needs.
Donald Trump has created the conditions you see on your TV tonight. He's exacerbated the conditions. He's, lit the proverbial match. He's putting fuel on this fire ever since he announced he was taking over the National Guard. An illegal act, an immoral act, an unconstitutional act, and we're going to test that theory with a lawsuit tomorrow.
All right, so you heard it there from Governor Newsom and also LA's Mayor Karen Bass. Well, moments ago, the counterpoint. President Trump responded to Governor Newsom on his way back to the White House from Camp David. This is what he had to say.
Gavin Newsom he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing. He's done a terrible job. Look, I like Gavin Newsom. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. Everybody knows. All you have to do is look at the little railroad he's building. It's about 100 times over budget. We're putting a flagpole over there. Under budget. I always do under budget.
What does your intel tell you about these people causing all the problems in LA? Are they people ICE is trying to deport, or are they professional agitators?
The people that are causing the problem are professional agitators. They're insurrectionists. They're bad people. They should be in jail. Thank you.
So in moments, CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi will join us to talk about what is going on there from the White House. But first, let's get to the ground in Los Angeles and CBS News correspondent Elise Preston. Elise, a lot of people waking up to the destruction and the aftermath, wondering what today is going to look like, what the rest of the week is going to look like. You are there in the communities where people are talking. What does it look like today, Elise?
Well, you can see it right here in the heart of downtown LA, Reed. We are actually right on that overpass where you were showing images from earlier in the week or earlier in the weekend. And you can hear that traffic that is going. This traffic was stopped, as you were showing earlier, because protesters made their way not only on this overpass, but down to the 101, that major freeway here in downtown Los Angeles. But just behind me, you can see that some police vehicles are blocking off right here. They've kind of moved a bit, moved their position. They're letting some vehicles go through. Not sure what that truck was that just went by. But you can also see National Guardsmen are standing right in front of this federal building at the ready. We saw them take a break kind of in the early morning hours. For a few hours, they were not here, and now they're back. This is the federal building that has been at the heart of protests all weekend long. This federal building is also a detention facility. So some people who were detained were taken here. On the opposite side of the street, you're also seeing more National Guardsmen. They're kind of lined up against the roadway there. They have their shields in hand. They have batons in the other hand. So I think as far as law enforcement is concerned, they are on the ready for possibly more demonstrations to happen, to erupt today. For the most part over the weekend, the demonstrations were peaceful. And then at some point, they would take a turn. So we were down here yesterday afternoon when that pepper spray was being deployed, when those rubber bullets were being deployed. You showed that reporter, that Australian reporter who was here in LA, and she was hit by that rubber bullet. I was actually standing next to her. We were right in front of the federal building. And then within about 15 minutes or so, we got separated in the crowd as we were in the mix. And that's when the rubber bullets deployed. I myself jumped into our news van to take cover, because in those moments, it would just happen kind of sporadically. It would happen, things would be peaceful, then all of a sudden something would erupt. And our photographer, Louis Mejia, he had to tell officers, hey, we're pressed, we're pressed. So when they were coming down with those rubber bullets, they kind of turned away from us as they were trying to disperse the crowd, Reed.
Well, and we see that school bus now moving behind you, or what we believe is a school bus. So it looks like traffic is moving just a little bit. But as we look to the week ahead and we realize what sparked this in the first place, what are people preparing for down there as they start their week, Elise?
Well, they are prepared for potentially more chaos. You know, these operations started Friday night. People were going to work. People were with their families when these detainments took place. We do know from ICE nearly 130 people were detained. And so a lot of people are saying, when is this going to stop? They're upset not only with what has happened as far as the immigration policy, but also the response, the fact that the National Guardsmen are down here. As you mentioned, the governor and mayor have said that the National Guardsmen in place would only escalate tensions, something that we saw overnight. And so I think that people are prepared for that to continue. Keep in mind, Reed, though, that this is only happening in pockets of the city. Again, we're in downtown LA. It was disruptive with the 101, which you can hear in that traffic. Right. It's a very busy freeway. But if you weren't downtown, maybe, you know, if you were paying attention to the news, you would know. And I definitely think Saturday and Sunday people were more aware of what happened. But the demonstrations on Friday, certainly not. People were out and about. There were a lot of events, and this was a major weekend as far as events here in LA. It was BET Awards weekend. So a lot of people were also out of town, or from out of town in town, just visiting LA. So those operations, all of those things took place, but it was in these pockets across the city, in areas just outside of the city where these protests were taking place.
Well, and relative to deploying the National Guard, we know that Governor Gavin Newsom is said to be getting ready to sue the federal government in response to all of that. Elise, Preston, every time I talk to you down there, you're on a fire. Last time it was the California wildfires. This time it is a political firestorm. Always great to have you on CBS News 24/7. We hope to have you back very soon. Elise, Preston, excellent work. Thank you so much. All right, so let's get to Olivia Rinaldi for more on how the Trump administration is responding to all of this. Olivia, we hear President Trump calling Gavin Newsom a good guy right there from the South Lawn of the White House. But then on social media, he changes his name. He calls him New Scum. So this is a president who is very much at odds with the governmental leader of the state of California.
Certainly, and these are two men that have a very long history and a very complicated history. And even in that remark that Trump just made on the White House South Lawn when he was landing from Camp David, he said, look, I like Gavin Newsom. He's a great guy, called him grossly incompetent, but then also said he feels like he should be arrested by Tom Homan, who's this White House's border czar. Trump went on to say he thinks it would be a great thing because Gavin Newsom likes publicity. So there's a lot of barbs being traded around around these protests. And really what we're seeing from the White House was the deployment of the National Guard under this statute, Title 10, which allowed Trump to go around a governor's wishes to deploy the National Guard and have them on the ground. We have not seen that in decades. But Reed, I do also want to say this is something we heard from Trump consistently on the campaign trail. He often said if there were riots or protests going around, I'm not going to wait for the governors of Democratic cities or Democratic states or the mayors of Democratic cities. I'm just going to go in and send the National Guard and the military if need be. So these two men in a very escalating political fight surrounding a very politically contentious issue of these deportations.
I just really want to button that down. Is it your reporting that the President of the United States said that the sitting governor of another state, the state of California, should be arrested?
Well, he was responding to a question that had asked that Gavin Newsom in that MSNBC interview had teased when the reporter had asked whether or not, Tom Homan should arrest him because of what he said about immigration or preventing federal law enforcement from doing their job. And Newsom had said, come and get me, come and attack me, don't focus on kids or deportations of children, but come at me if you want to make this an issue. President Trump was asked about it. He said, Gavin Newsom, he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? The president responded, I would do it if I was Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes publicity, but I think it would be a great thing. He's done a terrible job. And then went on to call him a nice guy. So yes, Reed, that is what we just heard from the President of the United States on the White House South Lawn just now.
All of this is playing out as the president's travel ban on people from various countries also are being banned from coming into the United States. What is happening in Washington, D.C. as we start a new week relative to that, where that travel ban is kicking in?
Right. Well, we know that went into effect last night at midnight. 19 countries are now subjected to either bans or more travel restrictions. We know of the 12 that are facing full restrictions. It includes Afghanistan, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, and those who are experiencing more restrictions include Cuba, Laos, and Venezuela, among other countries. And the reason the White House says that they're doing this is because of increased national security risks. They point to the vetting process for passports coming from those countries, saying it doesn't match the U.S. standards. They also point to the fact that a lot of citizens from those countries have higher rates of overstaying their visas in the United States. So because of that, they're instituting these stricter policies amounting to a travel ban on some of these countries. And Reed, this White House is no stranger to travel bans. We know that they tried it during the first administration, and it took them about 3 tries before the Supreme Court said you're good to go legally with doing this. So it appears this time they are quite buttoned up with this new travel ban and these restrictions on visas, and very little protests on that specifically that we've seen today compared to 2017.
Olivia, Rinaldi, thank you so much. Good to talk to you, my friend.